right, we're back. I'd like to welcome our first and only guest of the day. He's a friend of mine. We met in 1995 at the NPC Junior Nationals. He's been competing since the late 80s, actually. He's been competing longer than I have, and he's still going strong. Just recently placing third at the Masters Pro World Championships, taking home $50,000, his biggest payday to date. He's one of the nicest guys in our sport, and he's one of the guys that I have never had on the radio show, and he pointed it out to me this past weekend. I'd like to welcome my good friend Bill Wilmore.
Hello, everyone.
You, when you came up to me at the Arnold, at the little snack bar there, and you said you had a beef to pick with me, I actually was trying to think about what it could possibly have been, because I don't think we've ever had a nasty word with each other. And when you pointed out the fact that you're like the only person I've never had on the radio show, I felt actually embarrassed. So I figured I'd better get you on as fast as possible.
That sounds good. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you know, Bill, you're one of these guys that just does. You're kind of quiet, all year round. We don't hear much from you, and then all of a sudden, boom, you pop up and you make an impression, and you're pretty consistent. I think you've actually competed almost every single year since you started.
Since I turned pro, yes, I have at least one, if not 2 or 3 shows, including the Olympia. So,
that's incredible.
Yeah. Sure.
I mean, that's an incredible consistency, considering, as we get older, we usually get injuries or stuff happens, in your life, relationships and stuff like that. To be that consistent, you're like the Cal Ripken of professional bodybuilding.
That sounds good.
You started back, like we said, at least the first national show that I saw you at, I would assume that was your first one, was the NPC Junior Nationals?
Yes.
95?
Uh-huh.
And, I had the honor of beating you at that show.
Yes, you did. For sure.
And
I took second. You won. I took second.
That's right. And then we lost the overall to Willie Stalling, who went on that same year to win the NPC Nationals. Or the following year, she won the NPC Nationals over Jay Cutler. So,
that's right.
And then he never did anything after that.
Going back years now.
You know what? It's interesting, but people don't realize it took you 10 years after that to turn pro. Finally, at that 2005 NPC Nationals. How do you stay so focused during that time period? Because, a lot of people give up. You pretty much pounded away every year. You got on that stage and you tried and tried again. And some years you did good, some years you didn't. Tell us what went on.
I think one of the biggest things was I usually at that point, and I competed once a year because I didn't have sponsors and different things. So for me, it was like I wasn't going to just keep spending money, like do the USA, do the National, do the North American. And if you add up the amount of times that I competed, it's probably not a lot more than a lot of other guys. It was over the course of so many years. I know a lot of guys, in a matter of 2 years, they've done 6 qualifiers.
Right. But most guys give up. They lose the will when they realize
what it was? When I first started doing the Nationals, we were young. Right. We were like, I don't remember. I think I was like
20s.
Yeah, early 20s. 23, 24.
Sure.
And it was like one of those things where I was passionate more about bodybuilding than I was about being professional. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it was more like that was the next stage of the bodybuilding career, was not to go back down to regional. It was just to keep moving up. But I was passionate about that, and I think that's probably what kept me into the sport. Because if not, like you said, towards the end, when I actually started taking second and when I hooked up with Hani, that's actually when it was like, it's time to either do this or not do it.
Mm-hmm. But
all those years before that, it was like, one year I placed real well against Bob Chiarello or something. I took third. And then I started taking 6th and 8th and 9th and 10th one year. But at that point, I was probably looking to maybe give it up. But then like I said, I decided to hook up with Hani, and that really was probably one of the big turning points for me.
And, this is a good question, I think, because I think a lot of people who listen to this are probably aspiring bodybuilders, and I know a lot of professionals listen to the show as well. But you were one of these guys that didn't have the sponsors initially. You did get them later, but what did you do? What do you think changed, I should say, that enabled you all of a sudden to go from this guy who was having a lot of trouble marketing himself and making a living from this and justifying competing, let's be honest here, to all of a sudden someone who got the sponsorship and was getting a get by and keep doing show after show to get that pro card?
Okay, in what sense? Like,
I'm talking about a marketing sense, because a lot of people out there always ask me, how do I get contracts? How do I get sponsors? What do you think? I can tell you what I did, but what would you do to get those sponsors?
You know what? I didn't do enough, to be honest with you. And even now, I still don't do enough. And it's funny because a couple of times, Dave, you've interviewed me at different shows, and a lot of people have, and they'll be like, Bill Wilmore, you flew under the radar, and sometimes I take it offensive, and I shouldn't, because I just didn't have the people talking about me before the show, because I wasn't posting pictures, I wasn't doing this, I was just in the gym handling my business. And I think from that standpoint that guys that are working to get sponsors and stuff need to not follow that road that I did. They need to follow the road of posting pictures, and now with, Facebook and Twitter and everything like that, getting people to see videos of you and all kind of stuff like that I didn't do. The reason why I got the sponsorships were because just doing well on stage.
Gotcha.
But it took a lot longer like that.
So you would recommend that, and I would second that also, recommend that people show their faces, use Facebook, use the message boards on the different websites, and even though it seems like, I don't want to show people what I look like, you almost have to market yourself. And I always tell this to people too. Go to the big shows, show your face. It's not a big industry. Post on the RX Muscle forums and the other forums and the other sites, because when people know you and recognize you, they're going to be a lot more likely when a company is trying to figure out who to hire, they're going to pick a guy that everyone knows. And isn't that really the bottom line?
Yeah, especially now, because the companies aren't really doing that as much anymore.
Sure.
So, and if they do, it's actually easier. If you really think about it, it's easier for an up-and-coming amateur or somebody that just turned pro than somebody who's already established to get a contract these days. And then there's a bunch of reasons why, but that's something. So I would definitely take advantage of that. So if you're a fresh face, they want to see a fresh face. They want to see those guys, like guys like me and that have been around. It's like if I do well at a show, other than win, it's not like they're like, oh, okay. They're like, oh, Bill took third. Okay, that's good. So
people don't even realize you've qualified for 4 Mr. Olympia contests in your career, which is phenomenal. Because you do float under the radar. Now, let me follow that up by asking you: at this point, you're in your 40s. You turned 40. You just competed at that Masters World Championships. I mean, that was a blessing, that show, because you went home with a lot of money, $50,000. I mean, that's your biggest payday to date so far. I mean, that had to be an unexpected real feather in your cap.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you know what? It was one of those things where I kind of trained pretty much. I was hoping that they were going to have the show because there was at different times people were saying they weren't, but the whole time, I was training like a madman, getting ready for a show. I didn't necessarily know which one it was going to be, but towards the end of the summer. And, obviously I wasn't qualified for the Olympia, and it's just a show that it made sense. And, I think I took advantage of the time that I had off and made some improvements. So, and that's another thing for me. It's like I probably, when I feel I can't get any better anymore, is when I'll probably be time for me to stop, because that's what keeps me going. That's the passion of being able to be like, oh, an inch here, harder here, rounder here. It's like that's what the most part about bodybuilding that I'm passionate about.
Are you still as passionate about it now as you were, 10 years ago? Because at some point I got to the point where I just wasn't willing. I got bored almost, and I said, you know what, I don't feel it, and it could be because I had injuries that I can't make the improvements I needed, and I wanted to go on to other things that were creative in the same field, but just in a different light. Right.
Well, you know what? It's like, to answer that question, yes, but in a different way. It's like not for. It's like. Obviously, every bodybuilder, once they get towards the end of their career, and that's everybody, Jay, Branch, all of these guys, I'm sure, no matter, if you think about it, most guys that are at the very up the top right now, no matter what, they're looking towards it's coming to an end. It's getting towards. So I'm sure, like I'm like you. I'm looking for that next thing to try to do that I stay in the industry and different stuff like that. But as far as from a bodybuilding standpoint, believe it or not, I still do have. I don't know why. I still do have that passion of being able to change my body because it's still able to. I don't know if genetics have a lot to do with that, or how you take care of yourself, or just luck of not having any really bad injuries or anything like that allows you to keep making improvements. But I'm sure once I don't feel that I can do that, I'm sure that's when it's going to be like.
What would you like to do? What do you see yourself doing? Like, if you had to fantasize, like in 5 years from now, let's say you decide to retire. Okay, we'll give you 5 more years.
I'd love to be a mentor, for athletes. I still do that, training people for shows, and and also, there's in being involved in the supplement industry in some way, shape, or form. I'm not actually sure exactly yet to what degree of that, but in just being involved, like just in every aspect that I can. Like, I don't necessarily know the exact like okay, this is exactly what I want to do with it.
So you're still open-minded to what.
Right, I'm still open. I mean, I still like certain. I like a lot of stuff about the industry, and a lot of stuff I am burnt out about the industry. I don't go to as many shows as I used to go, but that's if I'm burnt out of anything, it's more burnt out of that. Gotcha. I still love training. I still love making improvements, and I'm still passionate about that, more so probably than the other side. But I also know if you don't take advantage of all those other things, and you're not visible, nothing's going to happen anyway. Right. So that's definitely something that I'm going to try to work on this year.
Here's a personal question, because I have pondered this myself, because personal relationships, how difficult is that when you're, really living the body? You've been living the bodybuilding lifestyle for like over 20 years now. Has that put a strain on your relationships because girls don't understand, the sacrifice involved?
Well, yes, I'm sure. I'm absolutely sure. It's like, you always like to say that, when you find the right person, they're going to support you and be there for you with whatever you're doing, and know that you're not going to be doing this forever. Right. But to answer your question, I'm absolutely sure that it has, and it does.
How old are you now? You're 41?
40.
Okay, you're 40 years old. Have you been married before?
Never.
Okay, so I've been married briefly, but so you've never been married. You don't have any kids?
No kids.
Do you want me to be married and have kids at some point?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Right, so you're like me. You're living in a fantasy world. We think we're going to get married and kids, but we have no relationship to do it with.
It's not always like the way that I want it to be. It's just like, unfortunately, sometimes things just don't work out, or or wasn't the right person. You just didn't know it at the time.